finish up real fast the last three pages on Hunter S. Thompson's assessment of Louisville in 1963, their race relations. He's talking about how falling property values is the reason why white people aren't being equal when it comes to housing. It's not that they're prejudiced, but they think their neighbors are. Okay. There's also a question whether a Negro would have any more difficulty getting a mortgage to buy a home in a white upper-class neighborhood than would a member of another minority group, say a plumber named Luciano, proud possessor of 6 children, a dirty spitz that barks at night, and a 10-year-old pickup truck with Luciano Plumbing painted on the side. Mayor Callinger, a mortgage banker himself, insists that a Negro would have no more trouble than the hypothetical Mr. Luciano. Another high-ranking occupant of City Hall disagrees. That's what the mayor would like to think, but it just isn't true. Nobody in Rolling Fields, for instance, would want an Italian plumber for a neighbor. But at least they could live with him, whereas a Negro would be unthinkable because he's too obvious. It wouldn't matter if he were a doctor or a lawyer or anything else. The whites in the neighborhood would fear for the value of their property and try to sell it before it drops. Another common contention is that Negroes don't want to move into an all-white neighborhood. The East End, for example, remains solidly white except for alley dwellings and isolated shacks. The mayor, who lives in the East End, has said Negroes don't want to live here. It wouldn't be congenial for them. There are some fine Negro neighborhoods in the West End. Beautiful homes. They don't try to buy homes where they won't be happy. People just don't do things like that. Some people do, however, and it appears that almost without exception they get turned down flat. One Negro executive with adequate funds called a white realtor and made an appointment to look at a house for sale in the East End. Things went smoothly on the telephone, but when the Negro arrived at the realtor's office, the man was incensed. "What are you trying to do?" he demanded. "You know I can't sell you that house. What are you up to, anyway?" No realtor, however, admits to racial prejudice, at least while talking to strangers. They point out, not selling their own homes, but those of their clients. In the same fashion, mortgage bankers are quick to explain that they do not lend their own money. A man making inquiries soon gets the impression that all clients, investors, and depositors are vicious, racist, and dangerous people to cross, which is entirely untrue in Louisville, although it is hard to see how a Negro, after making rounds of very sympathetic realtors, could be expected to believe anything else. Housing ranks right at the top among Louisville's racial problems. According to Frank Stanley Jr., housing is basic. Once we have whites and Negroes living together, the rest will be a lot easier. Jesse P. Wardors, the real estate agent, however, rates unemployment as the #1 problem area because without money, you can't enjoy the other things. The Louisville Human Relations Commission, one of the first of its kind in the nation, agrees that although the city has made vast strides in the areas of education and public accommodations, the problems of housing and employment are still largely unsolved because these areas are much more complex and confront long-established customs based on a heritage of prejudice. Of the two, however, the Commission sees housing as a bigger problem. J. Mansur Tidings, Executive Director of the Commission, is optimistic about the willingness of merchants and other employers to hire Negroes. Already, and much sooner than we expected, our problem is training unemployed Negroes to fill positions that are open. Yet there is still another big hurdle, less tangible than such factors as housing and employment, but perhaps more basic when it comes to finding an ultimate solution. This is a pervasive distrust among the white power structure of the Negro leadership's motives. Out in the dove-shooting country in the suburbs beyond the East End, Stanley is viewed as an opportunist politician and a black troublemaker. Bishop Eubank Tucker, the minister who urged his congregation to arm themselves, is called an extremist and a black Muslim. The possibility that some of the Negro leaders do sometimes agitate for the sake of agitation often cramps the avenues of communication between white and Negro leaders. Even among Negroes, Stanley is sometimes viewed with uneasiness and Bishop Tucker called a racist. A former president of the Louisville NAACP, on hearing the statement that local Negroes resent the national publicity concerning Louisville's progress in race relations, laughed and dismissed Stanley as a very nice, very smart young fellow with a lot to learn. Stanley is 26. He wants things to go properly, said the NAACP man, but difficult things never go properly. Life isn't that way. He smiled nervously. 40 years ago, I came back here thinking I could be a black Moses. I thought I I was going to set my people free, but I couldn't do it then, and it can't be done now. It's not a thing you can do overnight. It's going to take years and years and years. Nearly everyone agrees with that, and even with all its problems, Louisville looks to be a lot further along the road to facing and solving the Negro problem than many other cities. Even Stanley, who appears to make a cult of militant non-compromise, will eventually admit to a visitor that he threatens far more demonstrations than he ever intends to produce. The white power structure here tries to cling to the status quo. They keep telling me not to rock the boat, but I rock it anyways because it's the only way to make them move. We have to keep the pressure on them every minute or we dissipate our strength. Louisville isn't like Birmingham, he adds. I think there's a conviction here that this thing is morally wrong. Without that, we'd have real problem. We'd have real trouble. So, Louisville's not like Alabama and Birmingham and all these southern cities. People here in Louisville realize that racism is wrong and segregation is wrong, but they use other justifications to push it off to the side. That's according to Hunter S. Thompson, December 19th, 1963, which is actually 12 years before the white supremacist riots of 1975. The white supremacist riots of 1975 basically lasted for a year here in Louisville, according to J. Blaine Hudson. And that was when black kids started to be bused into white schools. When integration actually started happening, that's when the white people in Louisville started getting all pissy. So, Hunter S. Thompson on race relations in Louisville from a great shark hunt. Hunter S. Thompson, Gonzo Journalism. I'm Jonathan Masters. Fuck the LMPD. Peace.